Tal, it's great to see you Sunday. Great to have a chat after Sunday lunch for the monthly Zone7 podcast. There's a lot to talk about. Myself, I'm following a lot always the world of sports rights and contracts and, whether sports rights are going up or going down. And one of the big bellwethers for all of that is going to be the renewal of the NBA. There's a lot of noise around now about rights contracts being structured around the product and the availability of what I always call Hollywood product, which means the top teams, the top matchups, and the top players being on the field. Am I right in thinking that broadcasters are starting to say, we want to see the best players available most of the time, and leagues are starting to get very keen to make sure that's happening? Is that where you're right in the middle of now?
Yeah, I think for us, it's we're seeing kind of like a convergence of two trends. One of them is that the voice of the players is more and more vocal around the demand for, let's say, raising the bar on how their longevity is prioritized. Every sport has its own flavor there. Like FIFA and FIFA Pro is a certain type of dialogue that's very different than what you're seeing in North America. But it's the player associations in the North American sports are interested in this and pursuing this. We were part of a NBA Player Association conference speaking about player health and AI and things like that. So the voice of the players is becoming more heard on this topic, and I think it's hard to not prioritize that. The second trend we're seeing is that there is a realization that player longevity is tied to financial outcomes. And when you read this article at The Athletic ran last week 2 articles about the NBA new policies of maintaining or maximizing the availability of key players in games. Those articles really tied the dots around, this is something we need to address in order to get the type of broadcasting contract uplift that we would like to get. So performance and player health was usually kind of looked at from the medical lens, and now it feels like it's transitioning into something that's actually about the big revenue impact on the leagues themselves. So the NBA and NFL are spearheading that, and
But that's quite dramatic, Tal. I mean, I think that's quite dramatic because that's never been a factor before. But, I think now the broadcasters are getting smarter about what they're prepared to bid for in terms of sports rights and what it needs to look like. I think a little bit about the investment the MLS has made in Messi and all of that, and he's just missed a lot of games. And the difference between when he's playing and when he's not playing is dramatic. If you think about the EPL and English soccer, my Twitter feed is just absolutely full of fans complaining about, almost a full team of 10, 11 players on the sideline injured. And, in the past, that's been brushed off a little bit as bad luck. A combination of the usual, whatever you want to call it, resistance this is the way we do it here. Don't try and teach your grandmother to suck eggs and everything like that. Do you feel we're getting to a tipping point for all these reasons that people in this big tailwind of AI that's coming and all the new abilities? Do you think there's a moment where they're saying enough's enough? We need to bring our best A game to this now.
Yeah, I would look at it slightly differently. I would say it's not that it's enough is enough. It's that the stakeholders that are taking a hit because of this are now writing checks. So let's pick the Messi example, and I have no idea what's going on, in the team, in the league, in Apple, but the fact that he was not playing, how much did that hurt the ratings or the rate of new Apple TV subscribers? There's a number there, and it's probably a big number. How much more subscribers would the MLS get to Apple MLS League Pass if Miami would make the playoffs and have another bunch of games, which isn't probably going to happen? Is it directly because of his injury? Probably that was a big part. So that's one anecdote. That's one anecdotal story where, as people looking at this from the outside, we're like, oh, maybe there was a lot more money to be made. and a lot more revenue for players as well, by the way, because revenue is shared with players. If in a universe where those injuries wouldn't have happened. Another anecdotal example is like what the NBA is doing right now. I mean, everybody's outcome gets better if there are more games broadcasted where the MVP players, the all-star players are playing. That's not just for the owners in the league. It's actually revenue that gets shared with the players as well. So it's not so much for me as enough's enough. It's that the folks motivated to address this are now, one level up. It's now the boardroom. And the boardroom of the league itself, the board of governors, whatever they're calling it. So I feel like there are eyes on this topic that are that we didn't have on this topic 5 years ago.
I just think
we highlighted two of the biggest leagues that are kind of growing, right? NFL and NBA and MLS, but the leagues that are under attack right now because they probably won't get the same amount of revenue. You and I were in Como and we were talking about tier 2 of leagues that will struggle to maintain their contracts. Even for them, it's now about maximizing the value of what they can provide. You can talk about Serie A a little bit, what they're going through, and having their biggest players playing more is certainly one big step they can try and take to maximize whatever they're getting from the next broadcasting contract.
I think it's very interesting when you do talk about this, and I think you're absolutely correct. The stakeholders now are much more the players themselves that are complaining about the calendar and the pressures of playing all the time, and they're breaking down. And the other one's the broadcaster, which is sports customer. Let's not forget that. The broadcaster pays for the whole shooting match. Both of them want to see more of the top players playing most of the time. And I think that is a change. But, what I want to ask you is that in American sport, where the leagues are much more central in control and empowered, are you seeing a difference there where the leagues are coming to somebody like yourself and saying, what can we do to improve this? Whereas in Europe, you mentioned Serie A, the central league of Serie A is very weak. It's still all the 20 individual clubs. How is your business finding the difference between open and closed leagues and American central control and European like herding the cats, as you said?
So I think there's two factors here. One of them is the more control, centralized management that you see with NBA, NFL, MLS, hockey, NFL. Did I say that? So the league has more operational levers they control. Right, they have a medical staff. That medical staff has access to data. They can decide to deploy capital, and innovate wherever. The NFL has a really, really interesting research program on injuries and on concussions. And the NBA has launched a launchpad mechanism to find innovation. The MLS has launched a similar vehicle to identify innovation they want to drive in-house. So there's one side is the operational side, but the other side is also the type of organizational structure they have for the games, right? A Premier League team needs to compete in 3 or 4 different competitions. So players, Premier League, 2 cups, Champions League or UEFA, plus they go and play for FIFA 4 or 5 times a year, right?
Internationally,
And so the amount of I don't want to say chaos, but the amount of complexity that reduces the amount of control they have on things related to player health. They don't control rest. They don't control when players come back from the World Cup. They don't have great data coverage speaking the same language that the team has. So it's kind of like trying to stitch together different systems, and it's really hard to do that for 20 different players going to play in 20 different national teams 4 or 5 times a year. So I am seeing that in North America, the environment is a little bit more conducive to innovate around player health, driven by the league. And also you see maybe the beginnings of consolidation around the data collected, the performance data, right? Data from games using optical solutions, data from practice or from training using GPS solutions. There's starting to be this movement towards, if we had that data asset in a better shape across the entire league, we could do interesting things that we couldn't do when it's all just, the Wild West and everybody's doing whatever they want. So think about it as an evolution. Let's get our house in order, then let's start building more complex solutions on top of that infrastructure.
So I think we're agreeing here that the awareness of the importance of the problem has stepped up a couple of grades in the last couple of years for the reasons you've said. I think we're agreed on that.
Yeah.
The second thing I now want to ask you then is, what does that actually mean in terms of product? Zone 7 has been at the forefront, probably uniquely in using AI for all of this for 4 or 5 years. What is the state of the art now? Apart from, yes, we should do this, yes, wouldn't it be great? How do you reply to a league or a club or an athlete or a union of players when you say what you can actually do for them? What is the state of the art now?
So I think it's a great question. So where we've been traditionally when we started building this product was engaging directly with the folks who manage the performance data. So you could call that a sports scientists or performance directors, people who, make sure the data is flowing correctly and create some sort of reporting on top of it, a little bit in silo, I would say. And what we're doing now, and this is, maybe the state of the art transition, is the technology now needs to speak the language of the executives and of the coaches and of the medical staff. So it's no longer enough to provide useful information for the driver of the, let's say, the performance of a sports science lane. You need to be able to help them influence everybody around them, because these trends that we just discussed make it mean that those other stakeholders are more open to look at new information and to change what they do. The hardest thing is change, really. I mean, it's not so much about the technology itself and the buttons and the UI. It's kind of like, again, super cliche Moneyball scene where Brad Pitt is in the room and they're talking about the old way of scouting and he's trying to change the perspective. Change is hard for everybody, and for folks who do these jobs for many years, they have a great system in place. Now there's this organic movement to learn about new things and to maybe consider new methods. So from a product perspective, going back to what we're doing and why we have just launched this new toolkit to use AI and AI generated information to help plan, not just respond to injury risk today. Hey, there's risk today, let's rest, or let's do more gym work. To plan the next week or 2 or 3 using AI simulations and AI driven planning tools for coaches, so that you can look at everything you're doing more holistically. So this trend is helping us elevate our product to connect the dots between everybody that have to do with player health and performance. Not just performance and sports scientists, but also medical, coaching, and executives. And that's where this product evolution is taking us, to connect those dots across those stakeholders.
And how are you finding the reaction to that? If I was doing my old job at a league and you came to me and you said, look, I can plan this out and I can tell you where the risk points are going to be if you schedule the games in this way, across Christmas, across bank holidays, across the Easter weekend, everything like that. I'd be very excited. I'd be so excited that I'd be saying to you, what can you really tell me? What do I need to do here? And does this team, can they afford to go 2 or 3 weeks away from home in a row? And would that be the kind of answer you could give me to really do what I would call smart scheduling of fixtures?
Yeah, I think think about two types of folks who we now work with as a company. One group, which was traditionally where we launched the product, was people working in teams, and they don't control the schedule, they don't control the fixture, but they do control how they prepare for games. They do control what they do in the gym. They do control when they would give a day off or a light day, and so that's one group of people where we're creating technology for. It's a little bit more like an app that presents information that is valuable. And now we're taking that into the broader audience of coaching. Coaches and managers are a huge part of what we are building right now, because they need to be on board and they need to be able to digest new information. The other type of audience that we're building technology for is the people who control the schedule, people who control the medical protocols, right? What happens post-concussion is something that the league has a say in. So we're building technology for those two audiences. And what we're seeing now is that people working for leagues, whether it's the boardroom dealing with broadcasting contracts or the medical group looking after the league itself, they're now open to innovate as well. It's no longer a sense of, hey, we're going to let the team deal with medical stuff. They're taking the initiative, and they're deploying technology, and they're deploying resources, and they want to innovate as well. And that was something that a few years ago we didn't kind of see in the market, and now we are. Is it in every single league? Not yet, but there is a strong cohort of early adopters amongst leagues that we are seeing interested in and deploying resources and brain power and even capital into addressing the medical issue, the longevity issue from a league perspective.
Yeah, I'll say what I said a minute ago because, I think anybody that's involved in AI tech and machine learning in general, and they're exposed to it, and the way I have been luckily exposed to it through Zone7, the questions are, your mind and your curiosity takes you to all kinds of questions. How much can AI and machine learning really do? Where do you see this? Where do you see sport as an industry going to be in 5 years' time? If you think all this through about, what the scheduling is going to be, and not so much about American sports where scheduling isn't a major problem, but, global sports, the issue about the calendar in cricket and rugby and soccer. But then when you factor in the players' unions and all of that, you factor in the insurance companies that are, my head is just buzzing here. In 5 years' time, I can't see any other scenario that Zone7 is going to be right in the center of all these people that are going to be demanding answers from you.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that if I'm not a broadcasting expert, but if you look back maybe a decade or two, there was this evolution in how game data is being managed and collected. Right, you wanted to get good broadcasting deals. That's no longer even a question. Everybody wants to get that. And then there was this wave of, well, not a wave, but this evolution towards getting high quality performance data from every game that the league will broadcast, right? I think the NBA was first. There was an Israeli company about 2011 called SportsView that, used missile optical technology to identify how players move in the court, and then several companies were born in that space. NFL, every game in the NFL is data about that game is collected by the league. Not talking about teams, by the league. It's a system called Zebra or NGS, next game stats. That data is valuable. It creates value for fans. It creates value for fantasy players. It creates value for the broadcasters. Where I think the industry is going now is that the value from game data is going to evolve, not just for the fans and the broadcasters and the fantasy and betting, but also for player health. And when you look at things like, can we collect skeletal profiles for every player playing basketball or volleyball or whatever? Can we do that and use that for the benefit of the players? That's where we're headed. So things like VAR and things like tracking tennis players or golf players or soccer player or football players. I think that there will be this wave of performance data in the hands of leagues that will find new ways to create value. And one of them will be around player health. So as a company that focuses entirely on doing that, I think we're in a great position. And that's where most of our exciting conversations right now are happening. It's with leagues that are saying to us, we are just getting this league data, performance data project in place. What do we do? How do we use that data for player health perspective? And here's how we can help with our approach to AI. This doesn't get solved in spreadsheets, Roger.
Yeah.
This doesn't get solved in macros. This needs to have a new wave or new next generation of AI and algorithms and machine learning.
No, and that's why I'm asking you, because I completely buy that. And I think, AI just opens up so many different doors. And I guess with my kind of like corporate financier hat on and somebody that follows the sports industry, just trying to work out all the various players in the value chain and how they're all going to end up in 5 years. Because if you look at everything, you know, to the naked eye, if you're sitting as a club or a franchise or a rights holder or a league, everybody's into tracking, everybody's into performance data, everybody's got the latest tech. And it's not true, but the point I'm making is that everything's consolidating now. And you can see Hawkeye doing something there, you can see Huddle doing there, you can see Catapult. Then you can even go to the kind of more the data guys that Stats Perform, and IMG Arena, and I'm just wondering who has got the golden ticket for this wonderful total addressable market of sports data. How do you see it all consolidating out?
It's a great question. I think that 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, there were certain areas where you had an innovative company that had an edge in terms of the technology. So, think about Catapult 10 years ago being really the best game tracking technology out there by far. And today, that category arguably is there's other players in the market that have, arguably similar products with similar quality. Certainly that there's no huge gap there anymore. Similar areas, the medical record management tool, right? Your AMS or EMR, right? There's several really good platforms out there that are dominating the market, but the winning a client now is not anymore about just having the best product. It's about price, or it's about some other strategy. So kind of what I ask myself, and this relates to what you're saying, is what can become the next innovation driver to tip the scales in favor of one of those platform? What becomes the number one priority when leagues or teams will look to spend money on technology?
Differentiator,
right, in 2 or 3 years, and I think that clearly, I'm the Zone7 CEO, so I believe strongly that player health objectives will be driving a lot of that. But I also believe that the ability to deploy artificial intelligence in scale, and I don't mean that as a buzzword like ChatGPT for coaches. I mean that in can we create algorithms that connect the dots between what happens in the game, what happens on the plane when they're traveling, what happens in the gym, what happens when they prepare. That doesn't get solved in spreadsheets, and it doesn't get solved by team hiring really smart physicists to try and solve it in-house. That requires deep technology that takes years and hundreds of man years to create, and that is outside the scope of most sport organizations to build. So I think this AI play is not just silliness. No, not silliness, but it's not just about let's add an AI coach to our watches and our rings and our devices. It's actually about, can we create real value from this? It's kind of like, one of my favorite metaphors is the financial markets. If you want to create algorithms that outperform human analysts, that doesn't just get built by spreadsheets. You have to invest hundreds of man years in that. And if you do it well, you clearly you've got an advantage on anyone else in the market.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think the technology innovation we've seen in the last 20 years in sport is what I call all been a little bit in silos. This application here, this bit of tech there, and somebody takes ownership of it in an organization. It becomes theirs. It works. It doesn't work. But I think this new phase now is about connectivity. It's about data speaking with data, as you said, and player data informing recruitment algorithms, injury data informing training regimes. That's where I see the ability, because this is what sport's going to need to do in general. As it becomes harder to get all the easy money we've had for 30 years, we're going to have to get more efficient, and that means breaking down silos, and that means smart tech and software that can make things talk to each other naturally.
Yeah, Roger, I agree. I think you said something really interesting. Data speaking to data. It's no longer enough to look at your medical record and then look at your game data and then look at your gym data. You need the data to speak together. What I want to add on top of that is it's also not enough to create tools that speak to one operator. right? The value comes in when you can create trust and collaboration and workflows, if I use a tech word, amongst everybody that has some influence on this. And sports has always been somewhat of a unique workflow, right? You've got managers making decisions, but then you've got medical supporting them, and you've got data people supporting them, and you've got executives supporting them from different angles. So creating workflows and data-driven, AI-driven, whatever, that connect those dots also are really, really important. And I think that's where the pressure is to advance the product. And that's why we've kind of like, built so much in the last year around technology that connects the dots, not just medical, not just sports science, but also managers and executives, and making player health and the trade-offs and the risk assessments available and readable for the broader audience.
I think that's right. And that's probably where we should end this. And we could go on a lot about my own interest and, having watched the sheer performance of NVIDIA, which is, the kind of like, the pure play AI stock on the market and how well that's doing. And that's because people are very bullish on what we just talked about for the last half hour. Zone7 in some ways is the pure play AI for the sports industry.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks so much.
You, Tal.
This means a lot. Have a nice Sunday there, and we'll speak soon.
Take care.
If you want to hear more from Zone7 and our Performance Hub, you can follow us at the website zone7.ai, or follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. There'll be an episode every month, and you can find out more information by following our Twitter account and also on LinkedIn. Thanks.